Switching gears a little bit, we covered the Gaza peace plan all last week, and so much fanfare and so much pomp and triumphalism surrounding this deal. I'm sure you all saw Trump's speech at the Israeli Knesset. What the fuck was that? I mean, he goes up there. Like, you can't even overstate, you can't even exaggerate how ridiculous, like what a folly this was. So last Monday, was it really only just been a week? Maybe it was more than a week. Trump and Netanyahu come together for the fourth time this year in America. They hold a press conference and they present this 20-point plan for peace in Gaza. And over the ensuing week, Trump really nails Netanyahu down and gets him to agree to a first phase implementing the 20-point plan. And this consists in a ceasefire, a partial withdrawal from the IDF, and a prisoner exchange. Hamas gives up the remaining hostages. Israel frees, I think it's about 1,500 Palestinian hostages or prisoners. All the Zionists got mad that people are calling them hostages. I don't know. They seem like hostages to me. But anyway, so they implement the deal, and Trump flies out to Israel to speak at the Israeli Knesset, their parliament, their legislature, and then flies to Egypt to sign the deal with the House of Al Thani from Qatar, with the Egyptian president, with Erdogan from Turkey. I think Maloney was there, Starmer was there, everybody was there. Trump goes to Israel to give this speech, and the glazing was like, it's a level of glazing that shouldn't even be possible. He goes up there and says, no one went to the White House more than the Adelsons. He said, and I asked Miriam Adelson, which do you love more, America or Israel? And she wouldn't answer. It's like, they're just giving it away. They're just saying it now. And Shapiro, or somebody, I think it was an Israeli reporter from one of the Israeli television stations, said that the head of the dais, I don't know which official it was, but the head of the dais in the parliament put on his yarmulke because it was a religious experience. There's some Israeli reporter said, in 20 years of reporting on the Knesset, I've never seen anything like this. People were putting on their yarmulkes, which they don't even do normally. He said, and they put on the yarmulke to show religious reverence for Trump and what he was saying in the speech. Okay, this is what, I'm not even exaggerating, that's what they said. And then in the middle of the speech, Trump, unscripted, says to the president of Israel, which is different than Netanyahu, he says to the president of Israel, you should pardon Netanyahu. He's a war hero. He knows how to win. That's why everyone loves him. And you need to give him a pardon, like seriously.
Bro, Donald Trump is just obsessed with Netanyahu, and like this shows it again. And it's kind of crazy if you ask me, because in my opinion, he isn't a war hero. He did some things what is like insane. He should even go to jail if you ask me. And people will disagree with me. That's probably fine. People will agree with me. People will disagree with me. But come on, he did so many things what is not right. It's almost like war crimes what he did. I remember they bombed so many hospitals. They did like double tap strikes. It's like insane what he did. Or I mean, not he, but he gave the orders, of course. So you probably understand the point. And of course, like I understand that they were attacked first. I also have like an opinion about October 7th, but it is true, it is a fact that Bibi Netanyahu, he gave some orders to the military, to the IDF. Those are just war crimes if you ask me. So to call him a hero, that shows that Bibi Netanyahu almost owns Donald Trump, and I'm not even surprised that Donald Trump just said this, but let's see what Nick has to say about this.
Okay. And Netanyahu is happy as a clam. Like, this guy could not be happier. Happy as a clam. So this is a speech that Trump gives at the Knesset. It's a religious experience for the Jews. He's their Messiah. Then Trump flies to Egypt and signs the deal. And so far, so good. It looks like Hamas is giving up the 20 remaining living hostages. Israel's preparing to give up some of the prisoners. And what's really interesting is now some of these Muslim countries are disavowing Hamas and October 7th, Mahmoud Abbas, who is the head of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, he condemned October 7th for the first time. And there's some reporting that says that Hamas is laying down their weapons. I haven't seen that verified, but if that's true, it does seem that maybe this peace plan has some legs. I was very skeptical.
Bro, like one day after they released the hostages and they had like this prisoner swap, you saw members of Hamas marching the streets with Kalashnikovs. Until today, you can find this footage that they were like fixing the traffic. They were like standing on the road with like these big guns with their Hamas signs on their head. This was just one day after this whole prisoner swap, so actually 2 days ago. And so no, Hamas is not gone. I think everything is maybe even worse than before, because you have a whole new generation of Hamas whose fathers, whose parents got killed by the IDF, and they will even be more crazy, more extreme now, because everything what just happened to Gaza, to their country. So no, they are not gone, and I think they will come back even stronger, if you ask me.
And just very briefly, in a nutshell, my problem with the peace plan is that they didn't agree to all of it yet. Okay, they're implementing it in phases. The parts that they have not agreed upon are really the root causes of the conflict. It's whether there'll be a Palestinian state. It's whether Hamas will disarm and leave. It's whether Israel will retain security control over the Strip. Like these are all things that have been the root problems. These have been kind of the source of the intransigence from the very beginning. So in other words, if there was no agreement on this in January of this year, in May of last year, in November of 23, why is there suddenly agreement on this now? And so I suspected that this, like every other ceasefire, was just Israel buying time to get a reprieve for their reserve forces, to maybe refocus on another adversary in the theater, a different theater in the conflict, like Iran, or even the Houthis for that matter, or disarming Hezbollah. Take your pick. Like they're temporarily pausing in Gaza so they could go and focus on the other guys, give the ground forces a breather, and then go back in later, absent a commitment to implement a longer-term deal. But some of what's being said has surprised me. And like I said, Abbas disavowing October 7th, some reporting that says Hamas is ready to disarm. It seems like maybe it really is over. I mean, who knows? But then I saw the story today in the Washington Post, and you've got Donald Trump saying that if Hamas does not voluntarily disarm, if they don't give up their weapons and leave the Strip, Trump says that the United States will violently disarm them. And I'll read the story, then we'll explain the significance. It says, President Trump said Tuesday that the United States could step in to disarm Hamas quickly and perhaps violently if the organization does not do so itself. He said, which is a potential vulnerability in the U.S. brokered ceasefire agreement that has tentatively brought an end to 2 years of war between Israel and Hamas. Hamas, which has controlled Gaza for nearly 2 decades, has not yet publicly agreed to or signed anything specifying how it will disarm, although Trump suggested that he had received verbal assurances that they would. He said, everyone says, oh, well, they won't disarm. They will disarm, he said. And I spoke to Hamas and I said, you're going to disarm, right? Yes, sir, we're going to disarm. That's why they told me they will disarm or we will disarm them. Got it? Trump declined to provide specifics on how the United States would do that, and when asked about a deadline, said it would be a reasonable period of time. He's just like an NPC. It literally is like a dialogue tree, right? They said, sir, how many times have you heard Trump, like he retells a story, and in every story, the people are saying, sir, sir. Like every story starts with another person talking to Trump and respectfully addressing him. Sir, sir, Hamas said. Do you really think Hamas said that? Were they even speaking English? Like, what are you talking about? And then, what's the deadline? A reasonable period of time. Like no one's ever seen. It's just like NPC response. It's just like a sound box, right?
Same goes for the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict. Donald Trump gave them like 2 deadlines and the Russians didn't even listen. They don't give an F. So I'm getting a little bit annoyed that Donald Trump really thinks that he can solve almost everything in the world, that many people are scared of him. Meanwhile, people don't really care about him anymore. And I think Donald Trump should focus more on the United States. We have enough problems we should solve here instead of being busy now as well with like Hamas. Of course, like he has been busy with Pakistan, India, Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, Thailand, Cambodia, Venezuela, almost every country in the world. Donald Trump was busy the last year. But how much did he do for the United States? Not enough, if you ask me. And like, I'm getting so annoyed that this is our president with America first. His slogan was America first. I feel like it's America last at this point. He's busy with almost everyone in the world, but not with the Americans. And this really has to change.
You press the button, you just get the same things. Anyway, he says, I don't have to explain that to you. Love it. But if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. They know I'm not playing games. Later, he went on a tangent that suggested he believed Hamas could not yet disarm because the group needed to take out a couple of gangs that were very bad. He said, we have told them we want them to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently, but they strongly and powerfully, and we're monitoring. He says, but they will disarm. Do you understand me? Now, why does this matter? Of course, this is ultimately what the war is actually about. The war, why did Hamas attack Israel? It's simple. Hamas attacked Israel because of a deal that was in the works between Israel and Saudi Arabia. What does Trump do in his first term? He and Jared Kushner facilitate the Abraham Accords, which is a diplomatic breakthrough. Prior to Trump's first administration, Israel had normalized relations with just two countries in the Middle East, Egypt and Jordan, by treaty. At Camp David in 79, and Jordan, I think, in 93, both by treaty. Every other country, with the exception of Turkey, which recognized them almost immediately in 48, every other country from Morocco all the way through to Pakistan does not recognize Israel's existence, its right to exist, does not have normal diplomatic, economic relations with them. They have some like clandestine cooperation, like in the Gulf, for example, but none of them had normal relations. And this is really the crux of the whole Israel-Middle East conflict, is that Israel is here and they're, some might say trying to integrate into the region, but it's a hostile region. You could argue they're not really integrating, they're trying to dominate, but the point is, how do you resolve this problem? The Israelis arrive, they displace the natives. Every other country goes to war against them, right? And there's debates about who provoked who, but needless to say, there's this perpetual enmity between them and every other country. Every other country does not accept their presence in the region, and they call them an illegitimate regime. They call it an occupation, the Zionist occupation regime, because they fundamentally reject that the Jews have sovereignty over the territory, which they believe is Palestine. Anyway, this is really at the heart of all of it on some level. So Trump gets in, and he brokers the Abraham Accords, and he bribes, effectively, Morocco and Sudan and Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates to normalize their relations with Israel. And it's a huge breakthrough because nobody thought this could be done. Why do these countries not normalize relations with Israel? Because of the Israel-Palestine conflict, because they believe that Israel is not a legitimate state, has no legitimate claim to the land. They committed the Nakba, they occupy the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Some of them think they got to go altogether. Some of them think they need to return to the pre-67 borders. There's a lot, but they will not recognize Israel as legitimate sovereign over the territory because of the Israel-Palestine conflict. As such, they cannot have any normal relationship, no strategic relationship, economic relationship, diplomatic relationship, and nothing official, formal on the books. So this is a huge breakthrough. And Trump brings over the Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco. And one of the big things this opens up is the opportunity for the Gulf countries, which are rich in oil and have this facility, the petrodollar system. They have all this cash they can start to invest their sovereign wealth funds into Israel. And Jared Kushner's at the forefront of this. He brokers the deal with his connections to Israel and the Gulf. And Kushner makes a fortune when the sovereign wealth funds of the Gulf countries begin to pour their capital into Israel.
And then we say we don't have any corruption, right? Like this guy made a fortune. You can literally go after this video. You can ask ChatGPT how much he made. I'm not sure, so I cannot say the number here, but I think it was like more than 20 billion almost. It's like insane. And then like again, all these countries are bought. Of course, they have like those countries don't care. They have so much money of their oil. Like I won't have to explain you that the UAE, Qatar, Dubai, they're part of the UAE. Bahrain, that all these countries, they have a lot of money, of course, because they have so much oil. But that these guys who like make the deal, they're like the broker in between those countries, and like Israel, they make so much money. Isn't that kind of weird? Is that a coincidence? Smells like corruption to me, to be honest. And you just have to look who this guy is and what his religion is, and maybe you know enough.
And then what does this point towards? Really like a new model and like a new approach to peace in the Middle East. And fundamentally what changes is Trump circumvents the Israel-Palestine conflict. The old way of thinking about this is that in order for Israel to be integrated in the region, we got to solve Israel-Palestine, which is intractable. It's impossible. So until this impossible problem is solved, like we can't fix the Middle East. Trump says, forget it. Like let's just bribe these countries. Let's just give them what they want, and they'll just kind of abandon the Palestinian cause. Basically, that's the root of the problem. Now, the Abraham Accords point towards Saudi Arabia recognizing Israel, leaving the Palestinian question unresolved. And so under Trump, they start to work on this. And then under Biden, they really go to work. And Biden even goes to Saudi Arabia for other reasons. He wanted them to increase oil production, but Biden's really pushing for Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel and offering a defense guarantee, like a NATO-like security guarantee to Saudi Arabia, weapons packages. Like they're bribing Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel. And if this happens, and this was almost on the way to completion in August of 2023, so this is 2 months before October 7th, and the Palestinians see what's happening. And what is happening is they're being boxed out. They're no longer going to have a seat at the table. Whereas before, all the Muslim countries were sort of ideologically rallied to the side of the Palestinian cause and holding up Israel's integration in the region as long as Israel is occupying the territories. Now these countries are sort of selling out the Palestinians and saying, you know what, fuck the Palestinians. We want to invest in Israel. We want the bribes that America's going to give us. Because America's really going to come through for us. They're going to protect us. They're going to give us weapons. Then we get to work with Israel, and we're really going to be stable and safe and have prosperity, and our problems are going to go away. So the Palestinians are being treated sort of like an inconvenience and an afterthought. Now, if all of these Arab countries abandon Palestine, then Palestine becomes basically a problem for Israel only. And Israel can really handle it however they want. They don't have to worry about alienating anybody. They got them. So Israel can continue the settlements in the West Bank. Israel can continue the status quo in Gaza. And they're going to get Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and Bahrain and eventually every Syria, Lebanon. They're going to get all these countries normalizing, investing in Israel, and then it's up to them what they do to Palestine, and they're going to crush Palestine.
Very good point, and that's exactly what we saw the last 2 years. Like Israel was like the only focus on Palestine, or Israel was almost the only one who was like focused on Israel. All these other countries, they were sold out. They didn't care a lot anymore. I saw like I didn't see many pro Gaza, protests in Qatar. I didn't saw many pro-Palestine protests in Saudi Arabia. I only saw it in the United States and in Europe, in Western countries, not in those countries where Nick just talked about who like were bribed by Donald Trump. So it's a good point Nick makes here, and I'm also very curious about your opinion. Do you agree with Nick on this one? Do you disagree with Nick? Please share your opinion in the comments. I'm very curious. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you really like this video, consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. And last but not least, guys, I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful day. And I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.